Hi, everybody. Welcome to Discover College Soccer. I'm lucky enough today to be joined by Coach Travis from Angelo State in Texas. Welcome, Coach.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks for being here. So let's jump right into it, talk a little about recruiting. When do you start usually hearing from players? When do you like to start looking at players? What year are they in high school when you're doing all that?
Well, recruiting never ends. It's constant. As far as the timeline we have pre-COVID, and I think we have now post-COVID. So one of the things is right now I feel like we should be about halfway through our 2023 class, and we're not any way through it. So
Mm.
we have kind of this trickle down effect that I think starts with D1, in that once the D1 schools have kind of made some of their decisions, then some kids kind of figure out where they're at within that scheme of D1. And then someone will say, okay, well, if I'm not a top, D1 kid, then, maybe if I'm a middle tier D1, then maybe now I look at Angelo State. And so I'm not saying that that's exactly how it works all the time, but that kind of can be what happens. And right now, D1 is definitely, I think, on a hard hold. They're waiting to see which of their kids, so they've got their 22s and 23s that they're waiting to see, are those kids going to stay? Which ones do we want to stay? Which ones are kind of neutral, and which ones do we, maybe we don't want to keep them around a fifth year? And so while they're waiting to get that decision, they're waiting at the back end to see where they want to move with their other recruits.
Yeah. I've heard similar things from other coaches about the quote unquote trickle down, right? And then the
Right,
COVID year kind of just throwing a monkey wrench into things. Well,
right.
how many inbound contacts do you think you get in a typical week?
All total, new and returning. Well, right now I'm getting heavy on the men's side, which is a whole nother thing. People that aren't paying attention to where they're even sending their emails to. But I would say on average, I probably get contacts from around 20 to 30 kids per day.
Oh wow.
Now, obviously, some of those are return, emails letting me give
Yeah.
me an update, something like that. But yeah, probably 25 to 30 is kind of I would think that that's somewhat normal.
Okay. Now, what if it's a new kid reaching out? What's something that you like to see in that first contact from a prospect?
It's always nice for them to know that they've looked through our website. They might talk about, how we did last season, maybe a team where they saw us play against that team. A link to video would be good, just highlights. If we want to pursue that player, I would think that, a lot of times it comes down to a few highlights, maybe 3 minutes. And then we say, okay, send us 15 minutes unedited from the best half against the best team that you played against in conference. So there's nothing worse than you watch video and you see the same player and they score a goal, and then you look back and you see them score another goal and you go, okay, great. And then you see the third goal and you go, wait a second, the first two teams that they were playing against were in these bright orange jerseys. They're still playing against that same team. And then I see a glance of the scoreboard and it says like 8-0. Like some of those, they're difficult to evaluate. It's not that the player doesn't deserve credit for scoring that goal, but when you're playing against bad opposition, that's not going to necessarily tell me that much. If, you play against a team that's not very good, they play at the high line, and you see this player getting breakaway after breakaway, and you're like, well, is this player fast, or are they just playing against a bad team? And so really to have a good mix in those videos of goals against good competition, or just a good performance against good competition, whether it's, maybe the player's a midfielder or a defender. I mean, I want to see them play against good teams. I don't want to see a goalkeeper, taking a shot off their chest and, juggling it for a second, So we want to see the good competition and how they're doing against them.
That makes sense. Well, so if you get the highlights, you decide maybe you're going to go see a player in person. What are some of those main tournaments that you like to make sure that you get to evaluate players?
Well, a lot of them are going to be within the state of Texas. I mean, Texas is so massive in size that for us to go outside of Texas usually is a plane ride. And so, like some other coaches or some other colleges, I think we're somewhat restricted in how much we can spend recruiting. So there are some tournaments we go to that we've been to out of state. We've been to the Players Showcase that's in Vegas this week. I'm actually going to be there just on vacation. I'm going to get a taxi over and catch a couple of games, but I haven't registered to attend that tournament. We've been to that in the past. We've been to some up in Colorado. My assistant has been pushing to maybe we should look at the international ones a bit more, and maybe going there would be a way to increase that. We have had internationals here, but that's just been through video, through a lot of video usually, because it's a bit more of a guess, when you're watching these international kids play. But yeah, I wouldn't say that there are certain tournaments that we go to. We've been to the JUCO. They have a JUCO event out in California that happens right around the JUCO the JUCO championships for California. So it just depends where we can see a lot of kids that are in the age group that we're looking at, where we feel like a lot of those players will match what we're looking for athletically, tactically. Those kids are willing to consider out of state. And that's another big factor is you get a lot of kids that, say that they're willing to consider anywhere. But when it comes down to it, a lot of them want to be within a car right away. Not as many want to be a plane right away.
You mentioned being in your system tactically, things like that. So when you're watching players play, what is that hierarchy of things you're looking for, whether that's on the field, off the field? What checks the boxes for you when you're recruiting?
So just in going from most general to most specific, most general is we need to see that they're athletically, that we feel like they can compete. Does that mean that they need to run a 40-yard dash in a certain amount of time, or a 2-minute or a 2-mile run in a certain amount of time? No. I've never really looked at any of those, and that's just because the data is not always valid. But I'm looking for kids that athletically look like they have good agility. If I'm looking for a wide attacking player, we want players that can attack with speed. Players that have a couple of moves in the bag to get by players is always a plus. We're looking for players that can cross the ball and not just into the goal mouth, but they're picking out players. I spend a lot of time looking at the players' first touch when they're under pressure and when they're not under pressure. How clean is that first touch? Because it's not to say that it can't be improved, but it makes it a little bit easier if the player is comfortable under pressure, and comfortable under pressure from the front and comfortable under pressure from behind. If you're going to talk about a forward, and at the college level, there's not going to be too many that don't have to receive the ball with their back to goal. And so if you're looking at forwards and they're constantly in a high school game, for example, they're in the starting blocks looking to get in the space behind bad defending, in my opinion, then that's okay. But when they have to play with back to goal, what can they do? If they're in midfield, are they looking to play with fewer touches, or are they the ones that always love to, get the ball, keep it for 6, 7, 8, 9 touches, where they feel like they always have to beat somebody before they can pass it? Can they change the point accurately? Do they have the vision to see that? In a lot of video that you look at, it's very condensed and it's on one player, which then I can't see what's around. So now I can't really evaluate their judges. I can't evaluate their decisions. And so sometimes getting the video that's real nice and tight is great for technique, but it's really bad for me to evaluate tactics. So if I'm looking at a defender, then obviously I'm looking for players that have courage, players that judge when the right time is to go in to pressure a ball. Can they change their mind partway in sprinting if they realize that a player is going to get to the ball before them? Will they slow down and react accordingly? So lots of those little things. Goalkeepers, obviously, a whole nother thing.
Makes sense. What about, besides tournaments and seeing players there, how do camps fit into your overall recruiting scheme?
Camps are important. I think they're more important than they used to be. The way that the reasoning why I say that is, number one, if they're willing to come to your camp, they probably are not just sending out an email blast and saying, well, wherever my shotgun hits is where I think I might be interested in looking at. So hopefully they've done some research, or they want to know more about us. They want to know what our campus is like, because a lot of people, our campus, Angelo State, is geographically isolated. We don't have a lot of stuff around us. So if you didn't have a reason to drive to San Angelo, you probably don't know about San Angelo. But people that come to our campus see how nice that our campus is. They'll see how nice our facilities are. And then plus two, we can evaluate them amongst 30 players in a single day or in a 2-day event, rather than in a single day at a tournament. We might look at, 160 players, depending on how many fields we're going to and all that. So now we get more opportunities. So we get to see more data, which shows us the good and the bad. We don't just see, if I happen to go to a game and you show me your best, 20 minutes, that's great, but I need to see more than 20 minutes. Maybe the opposition you played against was a big rival game, or, sometimes maybe a player tries to play up because it's a tournament where I'm at, or a school that they're interested at. So maybe they give me a better performance, where when they come to a camp, it's like I said, we get to see more, and more is always good. And like I said, because of the value that we put behind them coming to us and putting a little effort in, that's always a benefit to those recruits.
No, that's good. You guys are Division II, so obviously there's some potential athletic money there. Can you kind of just give me an overall snapshot of the scholarship picture there from an athletic and academic standpoint? How does it all combine to create packages? What's available, generally speaking, for players that come in?
Yeah, we look for every dollar that the student athlete can get. Sometimes that requires a student athlete to put a little effort in, especially on the academic side. They need to do that. But we have the CAR endowment, which provides our CAR academic scholarship, which is a great benefit for us, for kids that come from out of state. Now, instead of our scholarship having to cover an out-of-state tuition and fees and all that, if they get the academic scholarship of $1,000 or more, that kid is automatically considered in-state for us. And then my scholarship, percentage-wise, equivalency is different. That player is more affordable. As far as kids on our team, we are like everybody else. It's a big piece, it's a big pie, and we've got to chop that pie into different pieces. The NCAA would say that the pie size is maxed at 9.9. But it depends. Each school is a little bit different. Some are looking at 9.9 as what the max for the NCAA. For us, we look at a little bit, we don't have like a full 9.9. We have probably closer to 9. And that's because we're not looking at paying kids extra money beyond what they're going to pay for their tuition and fees, housing, meal and room and board. But ours are kind of all over the place. The kids that kind of, I would say, tend to start for us or have most minutes, those players are probably somewhere between 5 and 7, maybe 5 and 8, somewhere in there. We have a few that are above that, and we have many that are below that. We have kids that come in as walk-ons, and then they'll earn money. We have a player, the very first player that we ever had that was our first All-American player. Not the first player we ever had, but our first All-American player. She came in and was basically getting a little bit more than books her freshman year, and then really progressed and progressed and progressed, and then left. Her scholarship had grown tremendously or exponentially because of her success. And that's how we try and put our scholarships together, so that hopefully they can grow. We don't feel like if we have a player and we need to take out, they're not playing quite up to the potential that we wanted, we don't want to go and take $1,000 away or $2,000 away. Nobody's ever excited about that, but nobody's ever going to complain, or nobody's complained yet when we've given them an extra $1,000, $2,000, whatever the case might be. So, but yeah, we don't have any kids that we give full scholarships to. It just doesn't work for us. I think that sometimes with an international, it maybe gets close to that. We've had a few get close, but just in general, we're not looking for full scholarships, just because roster size have increased, because more kids are coming in, and then if they don't have immediate success, a lot of them don't stay. They don't have that perseverance to keep going. Not all of them. We have some that do, and those ones obviously work out well for us.
Okay. Well, let's talk more about the school. So, I'm clicking around the website. I can learn a lot of different things, but give me the cool, fun stuff, the awesome things about the school that I'm not going to find out on the website.
Well, we're still looking to add things. We're still looking to add programs. One of the programs that we're looking to add right now is aviation. And so I'm not clear on that yet. We haven't had anybody come in that wants to go in that program. I think it's supposed to start this next year. But basically, it's a path to becoming a pilot. What they'll leave with us, I think, is 200 hours of flight time. I think they need 400 hours to be a commercial pilot, but I think at 200 they can be a private pilot for a charter company, or for a private, a farmer that wants his fields, flown over with weed stuff or whatever. We do a lot of science things. So a lot of people that come in, a lot of girls that come into us, they say, well, I'm not sure if I want to be pre-med, if I want to go into nursing, if I want to go into physical therapy. All those kind of things are all great programs. And what I say is that if they're looking to anything like that, science is sort of the core of the tree. And then the branches that we have that go out and offer all different kinds of things are great within the sciences. We also, for a while, I know that we were producing the most teachers in the state of Texas in, I don't know if it was D2 institutions or institutions overall, but that was a big thing for us, was teaching. We have some agricultural stuff. I think a lot of people, they look at Angelo State and they think that it's probably all agricultural, but it's not. I don't ride a horse to work and hitch it up out back. So we also added engineering a few years back, and that's been a program that's definitely been growing considerably. So hopefully we can use that to our advantage to compete with like Colorado School of Mines, or any of the science and technology universities. Nursing is a big one for us. We have a lot of girls that go into psychology, a lot in education. I'm trying to think of what else our girls are in. We do have some that have done ag. We have a girl right now in geology. I think first girl that we've had that. She was an All-American this year, or All-Region this year. And then maybe she's All-American. I'm forgetting. Hopefully, as she watches this, I got it right. But yeah, that's sort of a snapshot of it. I mean, we have a wide open campus. When we have recruits in, they always talk about how our housing compares to other universities that they go to and how nice ours is. We have a lot of apartment style living here on campus. We have a few of the old school, which is like when I went to school, I had my dorm room with my roommate, and we shared a bathroom with 30 of our closest friends on the floor, where we had one big, massive bathroom with showers and toilets and all that. The girls don't have that now. Pretty much they all have got their own little that they share with their roommate or their suite mate. But trying to think, I think the third floor, go ahead.
No, so well, not to shift gears away from the dorms and stuff, but one of the things I saw that I was more curious about than anything is, on the fast facts on the website, it says you're affiliated with Texas Tech University System. So what does that mean for students, the school? Does it mean anything at all for the sports, or like how does that all kind of work together?
I think it means we have more support. When we talk about things like legislation and those kind of things, Angelo State wants to try and get a certain grant or something of that nature. Having Texas Tech adds a little bit more firepower to us in what we can get. As far as academics go, I mean, we get twice the publicity because anytime we accomplish something, it goes through the Texas Tech system as well. Our girls that maybe want to go are pre-med. I believe we have a 100% acceptance rate in a cooperative agreement with Texas Tech.
Hmm.
And I think our law school, or Texas Tech's law school, I think that we can feed into that as well. And so those are some things that even though we don't have, you can't become a doctor here at ASU, but we have put forth many doctors. We've been their first step in their path to go through. So, and then I'm sure there's some other things, but as far as athletics go, I mean, maybe we've had some transfers or something, not for us in soccer, but maybe in some other sports, we've gotten some transfers or something like that because of that connection. But I think mostly it's in kind of I don't want to say buying power, but that's the term that's coming to my mind here, with having somebody else kind of helping us with that. That's kind of what Texas Tech, one of the ways, or a couple of the ways that they help us.
That makes sense. So you mentioned support. So as student athletes, how are your players managing the balance between sport and academics, and what kind of support structures are in place for them as they go through their journey?
Well, we have a lot of good things. I mean, here, just a little plug about us. I mean, since the United Soccer Coaches Association has been giving out the Team Academic Award, we've gotten that. Did you just hear that in the background? That sound? Yeah, I have a reminder that's a rooster.
That's
so
good.
Sorry about that.
You're right.
But we have the Team Academic Award, and we've gotten that every year. So we've had a GPA as high as like a 3.67, but it's always been above a 3.0. We also have a full-time athletic academic coordinator. So she works just in our department, helping kids with everything from getting tutoring help to setting up their schedule to working with professors when they're going to be going with classes, and sometimes just helping them out, trying to figure out. I talked about the All-American, the first All-American that we ever had. She came in, she was going to be a neonatal nurse, and she didn't pass chemistry the first semester. And I said, you may want to adjust this. And so we had a conversation with her. And that's one of the things that the athletic academic coordinator can do, is spend time with them in some career counseling and help them find a path for them with their academics, that they're not just left, yes, what you do on the field is important, but that's not all of it. And I think that the other thing that we provide as a D2 is that we have that balance. So D2, life in the balance, is their motto. And that's something that we do have. In our off season, we have some off time. It's not going to be soccer 24/7. And we have some girls that get jobs. We have some girls that, are heavy involved in their honors program and some of those things. So, but academically, we have supplemental instruction. So with all of our classes, basically it's like a review of the week. So if you go to a class and, you're not a good note taker, or you were sick one day or something, you go to supplemental instruction at the end of the week, and it's with a teaching assistant or a graduate assistant. They basically review the week for you. So academic success is a big part. I know people don't necessarily think of Angelo State as that, because we're not a private institution, but it is something that we are a good academic institution, as well as we're successful in athletics.
That's great. Well, you're in the Lone Star Conference, if I'm not mistaken. So you're mostly playing those Texas teams, but like you said, Texas is a big state. So what does a typical radius look like in terms of your season, how far you're traveling, and how does that kind of affect class time and planning for that stuff?
So we just added the Heartland a few years back, and so that expanded the conference into a sort of mega conference. So yeah, you're right. Our schools are everywhere. So we have to, like this last year, we went down to Texas A&M International and played. We'll be going to UT Tyler this next fall. We go up to play West Texas and Lubbock Christian up in the Panhandle. We play Eastern New Mexico, but also we have our non-conference games. And in that time, soccer hasn't flown we haven't flown like to Florida or California or anything, but we tend to go up to Colorado, get those in-region games and help us out there. But as far as the conference stuff, we're anywhere and everywhere. We just lost Commerce going D1, but we still go and play Dallas Baptist, Texas Women's. We're kind of all over the place. We're talking about Western New Mexico coming in, which would be a whole nother thing. If we get them, I don't even know how we'll go through like multiple time zones, going out to them. But our schedule now, we plan Wednesday and Saturday. So Wednesday games are always the closer games. And so it's there and back. We miss some class, but we don't, we get back here at night and go to class the next day. And then we also have Saturday games. And so on Saturday games, those are our games that are farther away. So typically we'll leave Friday afternoon. The girls don't miss any class because most of them are done by 1 o'clock. We'll play that game Saturday and then come back Saturday night.
So what does a typical day look like? Then you mentioned, leaving at 1. So what does a typical day look like with regards to classes and practice and how that schedule works out?
Yeah. So I'll go through kind of a typical week with our girls. So Monday, right now, Sunday is our day off. So if they need treatment or something like that with the trainers, I'll go do that. Mondays we're training. It's a full day. I think we have weightlifting on Mondays, and then we have weightlifting on Thursdays. So that's done after our practice. That's during the season. Girls come to practice. Generally, we're going to practice around 3:30 to 5:30. More reminders. We have so the girls go 3:30 to 5:30. Our goalkeepers will go out basically half an hour before and get some of their work on, depending on what we have scheduled for that day. So sometimes we'll just put them into the team practice if we're going to start with them right away. But yeah, the girls will have classes from 8 in the morning. They'll have lunch sometime in there probably, and then they might have 1 or 2 classes in the afternoon. As they get older, it does become a little bit more compact because their classes aren't, let's say there's 15 freshman English classes. Well, there might only be 2 or 1 or 2 senior level classes of business management or something. And so we do have some conflicts occasionally. We work around that as a team best we can. We try to tell the girls to avoid those if at all possible in the fall. But in the spring, I would guess that we probably have 6 or 7 girls that are maybe 30 minutes late to practice, or they have to leave maybe 30 minutes early to go to a night class or something like that. But that's kind of the thing. So I went through Monday. So Tuesday, light practice because we got a game on Wednesday. game Wednesday, Thursday light practice because we just played Wednesday. The girls that didn't play will do maybe a 5v5 or something to get a little bit of extra work out of them. And then Friday's pre-game day again, and then Saturday we play. So the new schedule is great for recovery, but I found that it hasn't been as ideal as we had hoped for teaching. So in the ideal world, we would follow the Division I program that they're trying to put in place, which is the 21st model, which is split the year. Play one game per week in the fall and one game per week in the spring. So.
Yeah, that would be, I feel like as a former coach, I'd much rather have that schedule, but it's just not there yet. So hopefully the NCAA.
Well, the downside is I was talking with one of my friends. How do you recruit though? Right now we have the spring off. We can spend all this time going to all these different tournaments and recruiting. When are we going to recruit? But we have to figure it out. But the quality of the games would be better. The injury rate would drop down. And basically we'd spend the exact same amount of time. If you take our whole year of CARA, the way it currently is, and then you split the year into half the fall and half the spring, people think that you'd spend a ton more time with soccer. But the difference when figuring it out, I believe, was 7 hours. 7 hours difference over the course of a year. Yeah. So it's minimal.
Yeah. Well, let's talk more about the soccer side of things, the team, everything. Do you have a roster size you're trying to hit every year, and what does that look like for your team? Do you have a JV or development team or any of that kind of thing?
Yeah, that's kind of changed a little bit. It used to be that I would think like 23 if we had 2 goalkeepers and 24 if we had 3 or more goalkeepers. But basically things have changed and evolved for me since I started in college coaching. Now our roster is up to like 30. And there's a reason for that. There's a few things. One is I like at some portion of our practice to be 11v11. So you got to have more than 22 because you're going to have injuries, you're going to have things come up. So that's one reason. The other reason is that kids have different priorities now. And, I told you before about kids that come in and, 1 year, 2 year, their position on the team, their playing minutes or something like that might not be ideal for them. And some of them decide, I don't want to play anymore. Or they struggle in their academics, or they're homesick, or, they're in a relationship, long distance relationship, and doesn't work for them or something. So there's all these different things, and we don't have a way to pull up kids. And so you better have them on your roster. So our roster size has grown. And right now I want to get it back down to, well, we have 29 lockers downstairs. So I want to get it to 29. That would be an easy number. But it just depends. This year we added a couple kids really late because we got a JUCO kid that was a stud from Brookhaven. And so we're like, well, if we can get her, then we'll make it work. And then we had another recruit, and she was just scoring a ton of goals. And last year our team did really well, but our forwards had a lot of chances, and we weren't as proficient in the penalty areas I wanted us to be. And so you hope that the kids coming back will improve, but sometimes too, you pick up these other 2 kids and you say, well, if we don't have what we need, my job is based on results, and even though I like the kids, doesn't mean that I'm going to cut them, but we need to win games. So that's kind of how our roster size has evolved.
That makes sense. So what about your staff? How big is your staff? What role does everybody play there?
Yeah, so I have myself, and I have Harold Munoz as my assistant. We also have Avery McNamee. Sorry, I say her name wrong all the time. I started out as teasing her, and then I couldn't stop calling her the wrong name. But she's a graduate assistant. She actually just finished. She played a 5th year this last year because of COVID. And then we've had different volunteers that have helped us in the past as well. We have a women in coaching master's program that our school is trying to push, where basically that program is going to give us an extra GA in all of our female sports, because we're trying to promote the idea of getting more women into sports. And so we haven't had one yet, but we will a year from now. We'll have one. Actually be one of my ex-goalkeepers is going to be in that.
That's awesome.
Yeah. And so Harold's been a huge help. I mean, I knew Harold. I hired Harold as a graduate assistant back in 2004 when I was at Eastern New Mexico. I started the women's team there. And in 2004, we started the men's team. And so I hired Harold as a men's GA. And then he went off from there. He went back to Eastern, was head coach there for the men's team for 5 years, I think, 6 years maybe. And then he went to George Mason, not George Mason. He went to a D1, was an assistant there. And then he was at Georgia Southern as head coach for the D1 there. So we're very fortunate. We have somebody that has a lot of really high level experience. It's not someone coming in that, just finished being a GA. And so that works out. That's an advantage. So all the other coaches are constantly asking Harold, when is he going to leave and go find a head coaching job? So I'm trying to keep him here as long as I can because he helps me out tremendously.
Oh, that's great. So how would you describe your style of coaching and your team style of play?
Oh, man. I get asked this all the time. And, with recruits, we always tell them, talk to the players that are here because they will tell you what I'm like. And it's not me just sort of giving my ideal version of myself, what I think. But I think that we mold our team around the players when possible. I think like this next year, we have an idea of what kind of system we're going to play. But sometimes the kids come in and we need to change it. And so we try and find the best players that we can. And then we morph our system to get the biggest positives and minimize any weaknesses that the team has based on those players that we have. So I'm very much a technical coach. I want the girls to pass the ball to the correct foot with the right amount of weight as early as they can. We want to try and press other teams. And so that's something that the new rule could change a little bit because they're talking about removing the reentry rule in the second half of college games. So right now, I don't know if you probably know all this already, but in the first half, they can't reenter. In the first half, they can reenter one time. They're talking about changing that, taking that away, which I understand why they want to do it. But, our players are not going on to play professionally, not many of them. And so trying to get them ready for the professional game like D1 men's are trying to do, it's kind of not the same thing. And D3 is for sure, probably their numbers are down from us. But so anyways, right now we like to press a lot. We do like to keep the ball. We're not going to be straight up counterattacking, but I do like to, when we're going to attack, I like to attack with purpose. I don't like to just knock it around the back the whole time. I like players that take chances, players that know how to take players on 1v1 and keep it fairly simple. You don't need to have a Rolodex of, 65 moves that you can do because most people can do 63 of them, at practice, and there's only one or two that are their go-to moves in the game, the ones that are most effective. We like speed. I know that other people, when they talk about when they play against us, they think that we're big. And so I don't know. I'm 6'4", so none of them are that big compared to me. But we have some girls on our team too that are 5'0", and some of them are stretching. We might be fibbing a little bit on their roster height online. They might be 4'11". So, but as long as they contribute, and that's the great part about our sport, right? Is that size and speed is not always the key determining factor to somebody be able to contribute a lot to the team. So, I mean, I grew up watching Carlos Valderrama that never ran more than 6 yards. And every team in the World Cup would have loved to have had him on their team.
That's funny. It's funny you brought him up. I always use him as his example. It's like never left the center circle. Didn't need to.
Everybody found him.
Yep.
Everybody worked for him. So it worked. You can't have 11 players on a team like that, though.
No, that's for sure.
So, but yeah. So that's a little bit. I don't know if that
that's
helps
great.
greatly, but
no, absolutely.
I mean, we want to play. Yeah. So.
All right. Well, we're talking in March. We talked a little bit about it before, but what does your off-season program typically look like?
So the first part of off-season, basically January through spring break, we're restricted to only be able to work with a ball for 4 hours with them, and then we can do 4 hours of other stuff. The one thing that we try and emphasize in that first period is their strength gain. Basically, this is a huge benefit for the freshmen because there's not too many of them that have, a strength coach in their high school or somebody that kind of tries to gear it for soccer, which is obviously very different. We've had people before that, you work with a strength coach and they're all about football. Well, that's great for football, but it doesn't necessarily help a soccer player stay injury free to be, big, massive, burly, strong, thing. But the other part is in the spring is that we're trying to emphasize the individual. We're trying to help the individual more, improving and pointing out things more so than during the season. In the season, quite honestly, it's about winning. So, you want to help the players improve, but you can't balance that between everybody. It's unrealistic. And coaches that say that they do, I don't know that they get the most out of their team during the season. You try to help everybody as best you can, but still you're working on what parts are going to impact your wins and losses and ties. So in the spring, we try to give everybody a decent number of minutes. Some of our core players probably are still going to be, getting a little bit more, but we definitely want to give a chance to those kids that maybe last year didn't get as much of an opportunity, but now the seniors are gone. And so, now here's your chance to build some, what's the word I'm looking for? To build some trust in the staff that you can show us what you can do on a consistent basis when you're getting more minutes, and you have a head start on the new players, which might be freshmen or might be transfers coming in, because now I've seen you more. And so it helps them out.
Okay. No, that's great.
We try to play good competition in the spring. Again, because we're geographically isolated, sometimes that varies. Sometimes we play club teams. We try to get college teams when we can. But we want to play good college teams if we can. But again, sort of the budget is limiting you a little bit, so we can't just go everywhere. But like this year, we'll play Abilene Christian because they're close by. Always a good game. And then we play Midwestern. Midwestern's a good quality team as well. And then, but also we'll play Hardin Simmons, who's always been a great team, nationally competitive in the D3 area, and they've always provided us with great games.
Yeah, for sure. For sure. Well, you've told us a lot. I really appreciate your time. I just got one last question, and it's kind of the catch-all of what did we miss? What didn't we talk about that you want to make sure folks know, or is if there's something you've already said that you want to emphasize, no matter what, this is kind of the last chance, if you will. So what do you got?
Okay, let me grab a visual. So just because I'm assuming that recruits will get to see this. So let's see if I can put that where you can see it.
Yeah. How did this penny get me where I am today? Ask me. So
this is sometimes you have quiet recruits and it helps get the conversation going because they can't help but ask. But basically the very quick version of it is that I found that when I went to go interview for my very first full-time job as a director of coaching in Colorado, and I kept it and I thought, oh, this will be a great, lucky charm. Everybody always has a lucky charm. And so I kept it. And then, but as things progressed, I have this penny in my drawer and I'm like, yeah, this is my lucky penny. And then I'm looking up and I'm thinking about the different coaching courses that I've been to. I think about the hours that I put, kicking the ball into. We had this wall when I grew up in high school, and it was the exact size of a goal at our soccer field. We go down and practice on our own for hours. And I think about getting my master's and all this. And basically, it's to tell the players that your success is not going to be based on luck. It's going to be based on hard work. And if you want to be successful, then you need to put in the work. And sometimes it's not going to be easy. Sometimes you're going to make mistakes, and we're going to let you know that this is a mistake and it needs to be improved. And then it's up to that player to decide what they want to do with that. And we've had players that embrace that and develop greatly. And we've had great athletes that just hold on to their athleticism, and that's how they're successful. And it works for them, but I still think they could be even better. If they had wanted to work a little bit more on their own on making a weakness, a strength, or, getting better at something that they're kind of average in. And so it's a big part of what we do with our team is that we tell them that you have to work and you've got to work. It's not just about, well, somebody off is, working, more and you don't. It's just about the pride in yourself. And hopefully that carries over into other areas of their life when they leave the program, whether it's academics, their job, their friends, having a family, taking care of their kids. And we just want good kids that want to do what they can in soccer to make it the best memory and the best part of their life that they can have. So, but yeah, as far as anything else, I already talked about, I don't ride a horse to work. We have a lot of good things here. We're getting ready to spend a bunch of money to improve our facility. And so that's something that I think is different about us, is that we're always trying to find ways to grow and develop. Talking about our system, we're not just going to look for players that fit our system. We're going to find the best players that we can and make our system work for them, provided they put in the work as well. So, but yeah, I think that's probably it.
Great.
We covered a lot. So
Yeah. No, well, hey, Coach, I appreciate the time. Look forward to following you this fall, see how you guys do this season, and wish you nothing but the best.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Thank you.